The woman dropped her coffee when the stranger said, "I think you're sitting in my seat." The cup shattered across the marble floor. But the man didn't move. He only looked at the empty chair beside her and quietly added, "Not because I own it. Because I've been hoping you'd sit there for 3 years." She stared at him. She had never seen him before. Or at least, she thought she hadn't. Outside the glass walls of the upscale Boston cafe, December snow drifted between passing headlights. Inside, Elena Whitmore, one of the youngest billionaires in America, sat alone with a folder that contained the worst news of her life. Her foundation was nearly bankrupt. Not because she had lost money, because she had spent too much of it helping people. And now her board wanted her to stop. Elena rubbed her tired eyes and looked at the man across from her. He was maybe 45, wearing a faded navy work jacket. His hands were rough, his boots dusted with snow, and there was a small scar above his eyebrow. "I'm sorry," she said. "I think you have the wrong person." He smiled. "I probably do." Then he walked away. Elena watched him disappear through the cafe doors. Something about him bothered her. Not in a frightening way. In a familiar way. She just couldn't explain why. 3 years earlier, Elena had created a private emergency fund after her younger brother died from an overdose. She never announced it publicly. She simply started sending anonymous grants to people facing medical emergencies, eviction, funeral costs, or unexpected disasters. She called it the Harbor Fund. No cameras. No press releases. No names. Just envelopes and bank transfers. One of those grants had gone to a struggling family in Ohio. The recipient was listed only as Daniel Reed. Elena remembered the case because the request had been unusually small. $18,700. A father needed surgery. His daughter had started selling handmade bracelets outside a grocery store to help pay for it. Elena approved the money herself. She never learned what happened afterward. Until now. The next morning, Elena arrived at her foundation office and found an unfamiliar envelope on her desk. Inside was a photograph. A little girl stood beside a hospital bed, holding a handmade bracelet. Behind her stood the man from the cafe, Daniel Reed. On the back of the photograph were 6 words. "You saved my life without knowing me." Elena's breath caught. Before she could read further, her assistant entered. "There's someone here to see you." "Who?" "Daniel Reed." Elena stood. For the first time in years, the billionaire who could command a room full of executives suddenly felt nervous. Daniel entered carrying a small cardboard box. He placed it gently on her desk. Inside were dozens of bracelets. Some were colorful. Some were crooked. One had the words "Thank you" spelled with uneven plastic letters. "My daughter made these," he said. Elena touched one. "Is she okay?" Daniel nodded. "She's 20 now?" Elena looked up. 20. "She was 16 when you paid for my surgery." A silence settled between them. Elena remembered the file. The father had needed emergency heart surgery. His insurance had refused coverage. Daniel had been a school bus mechanic who had spent years repairing buses for other people's children while quietly ignoring his own failing heart. "What happened to the money?" Elena asked. Daniel smiled faintly. "It paid the hospital. And the rest?" "There wasn't a rest." Elena looked confused. Daniel pulled out another photograph. His daughter, Maya, stood outside a small community workshop. "I couldn't afford to miss work," he said. "So after surgery, I started repairing bicycles in my garage at night." He paused. "Eventually, I opened that workshop." Elena smiled. "That's wonderful." "No." Daniel shook his head. "It became wonderful because of what happened next." His daughter had turned the bicycle shop into a free repair program for neighborhood kids. Every Saturday, children who couldn't afford repairs could bring their bikes. Maya taught them how to fix chains, brakes, and tires. Daniel had wanted to close the program several times. It cost money. Then Maya would remind him of the hospital. "You don't know who might need a little help next." Elena lowered her eyes. Those words felt painfully familiar. Because that was exactly why she'd created the Harbor Fund. But there was another problem. Her foundation's board had discovered the anonymous grants. They believed Elena was emotionally attached to charity. They wanted her to shut the fund down and redirect the money toward investments. Daniel had come to her office because he knew. "I heard they're closing Harbor," he said. Elena looked at him sharply. "How?" "Because one of your board members called our workshop." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a letter. It was a cancellation notice. The Harbor Fund was ending. Elena stared at it. "I don't control everything anymore," she whispered. Daniel nodded. "I know. There was no accusation in his voice. That made it hurt more. 2 weeks later, Elena faced the board. They expected her to surrender. Instead, she placed a stack of letters on the table. Letters from people who had received harbor grants. A mother whose son survived leukemia. A widower who kept his house after losing his job. A veteran who had finally repaired the wheelchair he depended on. A teenage girl who had stayed in school because someone anonymously paid her tuition. Then Elena revealed something nobody expected. She wasn't going to use her personal fortune to keep the fund alive. She was going to make it independent. A public charity. Transparent. Audited. Funded by ordinary people as well as wealthy donors. The board rejected the idea. Elena resigned. For the first time in her adult life, she walked away from something she had built. It hurt, but she was strangely calm. Months passed. The Harbor Fund reopened. Not as Elena Whitmore's foundation. As a community organization. Thousands of small donations replaced the billions she had once quietly provided. And one of the largest recurring donors wasn't a billionaire. It was Daniel Reed. Every month, he sent exactly 50. Elena eventually asked why. His answer made her smile. Because that's what I can afford. She looked at the donation history. Maya had also donated. 12. Then 17. Then 25. Elena realized something she had missed for years. She had thought generosity was about having enough to give. Daniel had taught her it was about remembering what it felt like to need. One summer afternoon, Elena visited the bicycle workshop. Children were laughing outside. Daniel was repairing a tire. He looked up. You finally came. Elena smiled. Can I sit here? Daniel moved a battered wooden chair beside him. You know, he said, that's becoming your thing. She laughed. For a moment, neither spoke. The billionaire and the mechanic sat beneath a faded awning, listening to bicycle bells and children's voices. There was no boardroom, no cameras, no fortune, just two people who had changed each other's lives without ever intending to. Before Elena left, Daniel handed her one final bracelet. It was simple, blue thread, one tiny silver bead. What does this mean? She asked. Daniel pointed toward the workshop. Keep the door open. Elena held the bracelet tightly, and she understood. Sometimes the greatest gift you give someone isn't money. It's the chance to believe tomorrow might still be different. And sometimes, the person you save today becomes the reason you never stop saving others tomorrow.